All right. Sitting at an audience of 25 or so here. We are recording. Yes. You guys give me a confirmation of that, and then we'll kick things off. Okay, cool. All right, guys. Well, welcome to the February Town Hall. Like I said a second ago, we have some content to go over today. So sit back, relax, enjoy the updates we have for you. And I'd like to introduce Clay to the stage. Clay, it's been a little while since we heard from you. You got some updates to share with us.
Are we not sharing the slides? I was expecting to have those to look at. Let me just pull them up on the side. So my brain
Yes, we
knows
should
what
be
to talk
sharing the
about.
slides. I don't have the slides, so I cannot share them.
Um, yeah. So hi everyone. This is the first time being in a town hall where it isn't game director Clay. We should probably update that in the Discord. It's now advisor Clay. And want to let everybody know that though my role on Guild Guardians has changed, that I am still part of the journey, still working with the team each week, and it's similar, but different. A lot of this has been in the planning for a very long time. Originally, I was supposed to roll off the project sooner, more close to launch, but it was clear that a lot of work still needed to be done. So I stayed for uh, the length of time that the team, I think, really needed me. And a lot of the last year has been basically training people up, getting people the skills they need, getting the game the systems it needs for live operations and growth beyond, and then doing those handoffs. And in my new role, I'm here to provide mentorship to key members of the team, to provide that sort of link to the past. I definitely got a lot of stuff in my brain case about where the bodies are buried, proverbially, and why we made the decisions we did, and they can use that to make informed decisions going forward. Um, Wanted to let people know that this is pretty normal and kind of the story of my career with games in general. I've always been the game builder. When I was at Turbine back in the day on Lord of the Rings Online, it was get the game launched, help it go through live operations for a stretch, and then move on to building the next thing. And that's kind of what I've done here. Um, the team is well set up and prepared. And I think if there's any message that I want the community to take away from this, it's that they are in a very good place to continue executing on the vision and goals of GOG. Mindloader is still here working on the project. That's a key part of how all of this works. Um, and I would not have moved on if that weren't the case. Some of the plan was, after this amazing stretch and crunch and journey, I took my sabbatical, and that was basically a trial period of the team, running the show without me. During that time, everything went really well. A lot of features released, a lot of improvements, and when I came back, it was clear that while I could provide assistance and help, most of that was in that mentoring angle of things, and that's what I'm going to continue to be doing. So still here, but you will not be hearing my voice throughout this whole town hall. Unlike the past, you're going to hear more voices from throughout the team. And yeah, thank you all for sharing the journey so far with me and the journey yet to come. And that's me.
Cool. Well, thank you so much, Clay. We do know that there are going to be lots of people who are going to miss you speaking throughout the town hall. But he's not left us, and he's still here to support us and give us guidance and advice. So with that, moving on, I would love to share with you guys an update on the game so far, similar to the structure of how we did it in the last town hall. I am Jill or Priya, who is the executive producer of GOG, and I'll also be taking over Clay's role um, after his left. Right. So starting with Our MAU trends, we're now at about 8.8K, which is about an 18% drop from November. But despite this, our DAUs have remained consistent, which really highlights strong player engagement and loyalty towards GOG. If you guys do remember, in the previous cycle, it was dedicated to strengthening in-game engagement and monetization fundamentals for our game. And we actually saw the fruits of that with an improvement on our day 30 retention side, which I'll be sharing in the next slide. But with that, we're now positioned to kickstart user acquisition efforts with a focus on attracting long-term players, but also to ensure that we have efficient ROAS on the spends that we would have for paid UA. So there are going to be three focus areas for UA. Number one, we will be starting with smaller targeted spends. That means we will start with low budget campaigns on Facebook and some other channels to optimize performance before scaling to additional channels like AppLovin, TikTok, Google Ads, and so on and so forth. Number two, we are really enhancing our creative framework and trying to see if we can leverage tools, AI tools such as Midjourney, etc., for more cost-effective, scalable creative production. This really ensures that we can do rapid prototyping of very engaging ads that would appeal to high-value players. And lastly, it will be high-value players over volume. We really do want to prioritize attracting players who will engage deeply with the game and who will stay with the game for a very, very long time, which means we really want to attract sticky players who can reach mid to end game levels so that we can ensure long-term retention in the game, right? And we're really confident that this renewed focus on UA will improve our MAU numbers while maintaining strong DAU consistency and also, growing it, right? We really need to balance our efficient marketing spends with our innovative creative strategies. And through that, we aim to bring in really sticky players who will contribute meaningfully to the game's ecosystem. Meanwhile, we are also continuing to develop more organic acquisition channels through partnerships, but we also have an enhanced refer a friend system in the game, which will be coming up very, very soon. So stay tuned for it. All right, next, let's look at our engagement metrics. Right, so what you have up is for Android, and what you have at the bottom is iOS. So you have day 1, day 7, day 14, and day 30 numbers.
Hey, Jill, I hate to break your flow, but
yeah.
we need you to reshare the slides. They're stuck in a weird state. Like a lot of us can't see them.
Let me reshare. Give me a minute.
Yeah, I've had this happen too, where if you restart, it'll often fix it. Go Discord.
Yeah, this happens to me every time. That's why I said that I couldn't share them. I think I recorded like half a town hall one time with none of the slides loading.
Let me see if this works. I should go to the previous slide though. My preview is paused, so I can't see.
Yeah, we're just getting the boxes. I can probably join on my other computer where I've got access to the slides and share.
Do you guys see game health update engagement on the slide?
No, for most of us, it's just a loading screen, but some people are able to see it. But for most of us here, it's just little blue squares dancing.
Do you see it now? I see it now on my preview.
I still don't, but I'm not the best bar for this.
Okay, let's just wait for Play to share screen then. or maybe while Clay is loading up, if anyone else has the slides handy, if you guys
I'm
could
up,
just try sharing.
but share screen is
You have it
off.
up?
Maybe if you stop.
Yeah, give me a minute.
Yeah, there it goes. No, that is not what I want to do. It is being stubborn. All right, well, I guess I have to just share my entire screen.
Okay, I see it, but I think everyone needs to click on Clay in order for them to see it. So just make sure you guys do that, or maybe someone can edit. Okay, cool, working, success, working fine, fantastic. Clay, if you could just move briefly to the previous slide, just so everyone has a quick look at it. Yeah, so those were the MAU numbers that I shared, and the 3 different strategies or UA that you guys would see on the right-hand side. Small targeted spends at the beginning, but once we see good ROAS, we would scale it up. High value players, which means sticky players, long-term players over volume. And then lastly, we have an enhanced creative framework with the use of lots of different tools so that we can have rapid prototyping of ads. Move on to the next one. All right, so what I have up top there is day 1, day 7, day 14, day 30 numbers of Android. At the bottom, it's iOS. So looking at our day 1 numbers, we are around above 40%. In the previous week, especially, there's been a 5 percentage point uplift from the previous cycle. So day 1 retention remains strong across both platforms, which really indicates strong initial player engagement. Our day 14 numbers are at about 8 to 12% for Android, 7 to 10% for iOS. There's a minor uplift compared to the previous cycle, but at the same time, there's also a little bit of a gradual drop off, which does suggest a need to enhance our content depth as well as our progression hooks in the game. And then for day 30 on Android, we are at about 5 to 8%, which is up by about four percentage points from the previous cycle. In fact, it's peaked at 14% on specific days. Even on iOS, we are actually seeing a noticeable shift above 10% recently. And the improvement really does align with the efforts on our end to strengthen monetization systems and engagement loops during the last cycle. Right. Overall, in terms of comparison to the previous cycle, we've improved the long-term retention of the game. This has really been because of different sorts of engagement strategies that we've had, as well as some content updates. We see some stability in midterm retention, but it still does lag behind some top competitors like AFK Journey, Summoner's War, so on and so forth. And with that, our focus areas for the following cycle would be to boost our midterm retention, so boost our day 7 to day 14. We want to be able to do that by introducing more engaging live ops events and time limited challenges to incentivize players to return during this critical period, and be enhanced progression systems with more clearer milestones and rewards to really keep players invested during that day 7 to day 14 period. Number 2, we also do want to strengthen our long-term retention even further and make it solid and consistent. And for that, we'll be doing 2 things. We would want to expand our end game content, which means more competitive modes, more co-op features, so that we can retain the advanced players, the long-term players. And then lastly, implement personalized re-engagement campaigns that target specifically lapsed players with some tailored offers, as well as incentives for them to catch up. All right, we can move on to the next slide. All right, so this is then a good segue for our strategy for March all the way up till June, so for the next 4 months. We are addressing 5 key areas that our players have highlighted as important to their experience, but also at the same time, we've seen as part of our analysis and our insights and whatever the data is telling us. I won't go through, or the team won't go through every single feature in the town hall today, as some of them are still undergoing design, but we will share with you some very exciting highlights. So starting with our very first strategic pillar, this is increased Guardian collection and meta evolution. Why is this a focus? Our current qualitative and quantitative data shows that players really heavily rely on a limited set of meta guardians, and that really reduces collection diversity in the game, right? If we see a lot of successful author battler RPGs, they thrive on fostering excitement around building diverse teams and experimenting with strategies. And so we really want to be able to encourage a broader collection in underutilized Guardians. We will hence have content that will make the Guardian meta more dynamic in game. And we're also working on a new progression mechanic that will deepen collection in new Guardians. So please stay tuned for that. For the second pillar, we've got game mode and content depth. So let me start with game modes. Why is that a focus? Um, Looking at our engagement drops in the D14 to D30 range, it really does highlight the need for more varied gameplay so that we can sustain interest from our players. Again, if we look at top performing RPGs, they offer diverse modes that cater to both casual and competitive players, and we want to be able to enable that in game as well. And content depth and variety. Why is this a focus? Our midterm retention suffers due to limited narrative-driven content and collectible features. And these are key engagement drivers in successful RPGs, and that's what we want to drive, right? So some of the big features that we'll be launching here. We are going to have seasonal events that will introduce gameplay twists to really shake up the meta, that will encourage strategic adaptation and will keep the gameplay dynamic for both new as well as veteran players. Number two, Pets V2. We want to have expanded and enhanced pet functionality in game that will add a new layer of strategy and engagement for players through its integration in combat mechanics. Something that you guys don't see here is that we will also be adding more engaging live ops events, time limited challenges, as spoken earlier, to incentivize players to return. Number three, guild engagement and co-op opportunities. Why is this a focus? Our advanced players lack meaningful endgame goals, and guild mechanics in competing games foster social engagement through more collaborative goals, and that's what we want to have in game, right? So there are going to be 2 features that will focus on this. One, guild asset rentals. We will be introducing a system that will allow our leaders to share extra Web3 assets with their guildmates or all players. And hint, hint, we do want the community and guilds to collaborate more. So there will be a new game mode with more community and co-op activities that will incentivize teamwork, resource management, strategic planning, and drive more engagement amongst our advanced players. So I hope you guys are excited for that one. Number 4, given that we have a focus on UA, we do have a need to ensure that there's good enough and onboarding and early progression systems for our early game players, right? So this is um, a pillar that focuses on the growth and progression of new players. Specifically, um, when we look at competing games, they really excel at converting new players with player tutorials, progression paths, lots of early rewards. And so we're going to have a couple of features that does focus on this. We're going to have some onboarding improvements, enhanced tooltips in game, and Ascension Seal tutorial, which is dedicated to explaining the how the Ascension Seal system works and its role in progression for new players, so that players are educated on this core mechanic and understand how to progress. We also will have some structured and time-limited growth events with daily missions that focuses on team building basics, guardian upgrades,
Hey,
early
Priya,
game progression
sorry
rewards.
to interrupt you
Yeah.
again. Clay, it looks like we lost Clay and lost the slides.
I can try sharing again.
Yep. Why don't you try again, and then we can also just share them here in chat for the time being, so we don't keep delaying things too much. We can just keep on going. Looks like Clay is back, so let's see if we can get him sharing again, and we'll just start sharing
Right,
the
sorry about
slides here in chat as well. Yeah, no worries, Clay.
I was sitting there with just the slides up and I couldn't see chat, so I went to click on my other computer and it logged me out, and I'm not sure why. Discord over here. Selection. Sorry, Discord screen sharing is really tricky. Oh, crap, that's not going to work. Because as soon as I go slideshow, isn't it going to...
No, it looks good on my end. I can see it.
Okay, good.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah.
Continue.
All right. I was at 4B, I believe. So we're going to be introducing growth events for new players. So this is like time-limited events with daily missions that really focuses on team building basics, guardian upgrades, early game progression rewards. And what they do is they'll provide some really clear goals and rewards, helping new players to establish a strong foundation while ensuring that we can boost their day 7 and day 14 retention rates as well. And lastly, quality of life updates and economy or balancing improvements. We do see some friction in our progression systems, and we also still see some currency bloat that really hinders player satisfaction. And we want to introduce streamlined systems that are essential for a much smoother gameplay experience, particularly for mid to late game players. But this also will extend to early game players once it's implemented. A couple of things here. A much newer and updated Haven screen. We will also be looking at rebalancing some of our dungeons, or looking at our difficulty and pacing so that we can smoothen that out. And also rebalance the surplus that we see of some resources in early game, so that they can actually catch up with our late game players and don't feel too overwhelmed or resource capped. So yeah, each of these initiatives, like I said earlier, this is not exhaustive. There are a lot more features that fall into each of these pillars that we will be working on. They have been carefully chosen to create a sustainable growth for the game while also enhancing the player experience. Many of these features are still in development, and we would greatly value your feedback to help us optimize them within our design principles. Our team has really crafted these features with careful consideration of player needs and game health, but your insights could really help make them even better. So we're very open to feedback from you guys at this point in time. Could we move on to the next slide? All right, so what we're going to be doing now is we're going to we're going to dive in to some of these big features, and actually also share some details of features that have been launched recently, but more so share new updates. I will start with the first one, and then I'll be passing over to the rest of the team, uh, which is our two main game designers who will be sharing more details on it. So kicking it off, I'll start with the first slide, which is new player improvements. There has been a little bit of a brief overview of this in the previous slide, as I mentioned, but the whole point of this is to enhance our progression systems with clearer milestones and rewards to keep our new players interested. So on top of that, what we'll be doing is we'll be introducing special events for some targeted players under certain commander levels to help them acquire guardians and help them catch up so that they can raise their commander level and progress gear power. And two, we'll be unlocking core systems and content faster for them. So we want players to unlock all core PvE and PvP modes within the first 4 weeks of gameplay, because our data has really showed some good engagement metrics once players do reach that point of time. And then lastly, improving our goal visualization and progression, so that there is early goal setting and mid game goal setting that is done for players at an early stage in game. So we'll be refactoring the achievement page in the quest menu, and we'll be adding guild quests, arena quests, endless quests, gear quests, combat quests, etc. So there are clear milestones for them to work towards at the beginning of the game. With that, I'll be passing over to Brahma, I believe, who will be sharing more about gameplay depth improvements. Over to you, Brahma.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me? I was just having issues with my mic earlier. Just want to make sure everyone can hear me before I start yapping.
Yep, can hear you.
Fantastic. Cool. Gameplay depth improvements. What is the goal here? Uh, Basically, we want to introduce new winning strategies and freshen up the meta. So, with new gameplay mechanics, you will need more teams and compositions, and you can expect to face more matchups. Initially, we will be testing these through special events for two reasons. One is we will be testing the quality and balance of our initial content. And more importantly, we will be using this time to build our tooling and internal processes to make sure that we can consistently keep doing this. Talking about matchmaking, the goals here are pretty straightforward. We want to offer more consistent matchups where players are not too far apart in power, and we will also be fixing the frequency of bot matches and the quality of our bots. And then Gen 2. Uh, we are still pretty early in designing Gen 2, and we will present more when we can. But right now, we can say that the utility will depend on the new gameplay mechanics that I just mentioned. And progress will incorporate and be alongside Gen 1 and other existing Guardians. Next slide, please. So I can't actually see what's being shared on Discord, so I hope the slide is saying game mode exploration.
It is.
Uh, Thank you. Um, Adventure mode. So we are working on making it simpler and a more casual experience. And then to pair with that casual experience, we are adding a game mode called Delve, working title, where you can get resources and progress to some of the bumpier parts of adventure. For the more competitive players, especially those who like taking risks, we are adding a risk reward PvP mode called Gauntlet, again, working title. This mode relies more on your knowledge of the game than your progression, and we will be launching the first test pretty soon, so we are keen to get your feedback. The Endless V2 test taught us a lot about what direction the experience needs to take. So we are working towards what is the quote unquote official version of Endless V2 with those insights. There are some changes that are still in flight based on your feedback, but our main goals with this new version will be to save you time, reduce combat encounters that feel meaningless, and for progression through rooms to feel impactful. Next slide, please. Event shop. So we have been looking very closely at the game economy and trying to provide value where we can. Last month, we saw that players had a lot of surplus summon stones, so we added a shop where you could indirectly spend those. This month, we are seeing that there is a big surplus of rubies, so we will be adding a limited time event shop soon for you to spend those extra rubies on. And that's my section, so I can hand it over to Epoch to walk us through some more things.
Sounds good. Thank you. All right. Can you guys hear me okay? I will take that as yes. Fantastic. All right.
Yes, you sound beautiful. Keep going.
All right. Here we go. So I'll take you guys through a couple things. We're going to start off with Pets v2. Josiah, who has been working on this and talking with you guys in the chat alongside me a little bit, has really appreciated your guys' feedback. So thank you for providing it. And as a result, we're going to be kind of taking things back to the drawing board a little bit. We have some of the changes that are going to be coming as a result of that here on the slide. So I'll just kind of walk you guys through that and continue giving us that feedback. So basically, as you guys had mentioned, I think the ability to basically destroy skills and have things be too variable was not something that folks really appreciated. So we've made some adjustments there. Pets now have 3 skills maximum, uh, and the skill number is determined by the rarity of the pet itself. 2 are passive and are changeable via the cultivation mechanic, and 1 is combat, and that's locked. So we got that as far as changes, I think, from what's previously been shared. Additionally, you're not going to level up pet skills through cultivation any longer. You now basically increase pet skill level with the Radiance. So they'll, if you have a Radiance 2 or 3 pet, then the pet skills will have the corresponding level 2 or 3 or whatever it is. So we're going to be changing how that works from what was previously shared as well. And then I know that one of the big things was that folks felt like pet classes didn't really add a whole lot. So the teams have been trying to figure out some ways to account for that as well. And I know that there's been some things shared as far as like the types of skills and their effects, potentially where they have effects as a way to make pet class more meaningful. Um, So that's kind of the gist of how we're approaching that problem. And yeah, so like I mentioned, we'll keep iterating on this. I don't think we have anything set for when. I know we initially mentioned I think maybe this month for V2. Given the feedback we've heard and the changes that we need to make, I hope it's clear that that's no longer able to be executed on for this month. So we'll keep you guys updated, and as soon as we know, we'll share. All right, next slide, please. Okay, so like was mentioned previously, guild retention features. So basically this boils down to 3 main components: the guild versus guild PvP, Web3 asset rentals in-game, and artifact balance. So I'll touch briefly on each of these 3. Basically, the main portion for the new game mode for Guild vs. Guild PvP, there is a current lack of collaborative content within guilds. It's basically a lot of you're with a group of people and you're still kind of competing against everybody, and there's some collaboration that happens naturally, but there isn't quite a lot of it. So providing an avenue or an opportunity for players to work with your guild a lot more closely to a common goal or um, in a common direction, I think is pretty important. So we're hoping to be able to do something along those lines with a new mode in a PvP format, so that guilds can see how they stack up against each other, and I think that'll be good. Like Priya had mentioned earlier, some of this stuff is still being iterated on. So if it sounds vague, there's a reason for that. I don't want to provide anything too specific, and then if for whatever reason it doesn't feel right when we're playtesting, or if it doesn't solve the problems quite as effectively as we'd like, don't want to be locked to something and set an expectation that won't be met. So for Web3 asset rentals, I've spoken to a couple of folks in the community here, and obviously we know that you guys are doing this, and that's a perfectly acceptable thing to do with your Web3 assets, right? You own those. You can utilize them and try to gain utility out of them. Mostly, I'm going to choose my words carefully here, mostly however you choose. Obviously, abiding by game rules, no breaking terms of service, that sort of fun stuff. But basically, the idea here is, while you guys are trying to do that, there's a decent amount of risk to sharing those assets with folks. And there's a lot of like extra hoops that you guys have to jump through with additional websites and wallets and KYC and that sort of stuff. And it's not really discoverable to the existing player base unless you're hanging out in Discord or you happen to know people that do this. So would really like to roll this into a like a per guild offering or potentially even community wide. But basically give you guys a like first party opportunity to uh, within game have players that need the things that some of you guys um, have access to those, and then it's easy, it's safe, it's built in, and then uh, it allows you guys to get some additional utility out of your Web3 assets. So I think that's a pretty good one. Um, and then another big one is artifact balance. I know Heart of Unity is a big one. There, believe it or not, most of us play on the team, and so we're well aware that it's a little wonky. We try to address that a little bit with some balance updates, but there's still some work to be done there, both as far as accessibility of artifacts goes and what players feel that they need to use, which ties into kind of what Brahma was mentioning about a variation in available strategies for success. Right now, basically, you have one interesting uh, artifact or one clear winner as far as artifacts go, um, but that doesn't make the most compelling gameplay, right? Players should have the opportunity to choose between multiple meaningful options. Um, so we're looking at both expanding the offerings for public artifacts for guilds and how accessible they are across the board from adventure guilds through um, mythic guilds, right? So uh, trying to even the playing field a little bit there on that. Alrighty, next slide, please. Fantastic. All right, guild crafting changes. So we had the beta in December, I believe, and we heard some very solid and consistent feedback with regards to potion functionality and potential risks and just kind of things that folks were uneasy about. So we're, obviously taking into account that feedback and making changes accordingly. Um, so the functionality of how guild powers worked to contribute to potion crafting is being adjusted and looked at. Um, we're reducing some of the essence box RNG for potion crafting as well. I know that probably like myself, most of you won't cry about a reduction in RNG mechanics, so that's pretty cool. And then a change in functionality for what Unity powers for as well. And then, of course, we're adding common rarity potions to try and improve discoverability of potions as a whole, but with more limited utility so that the content that guilds have the opportunity to craft still has value. And then, as I mentioned, the potion functionality itself is changing. And then a big one that I know was requested was an increase in transparency and accountability for guild leaders. So trying to ensure that players are able to as quickly understand how a guild leader is operating with regards to crafting. And if they're, just keeping things that they're crafting for themselves, or if they're simply not distributing anything and they're inactive. So trying to solve as many of those like user experiences that lead to negative experiences as possible with some of the changes coming up as well. So that's the quick TLDR there. Next slide, please. All right. I am not super stoked on this slide, but I will I'll go through it as best I can here. So I will start with the more easier aspects of this, and then I'll get into the last 24 hours or so. So obviously, really appreciate you guys working with us for like the last, gosh, month and a half, 2 months on feedback and the really like seriously in-depth quality analysis that a lot of you guys did. It was super helpful in making us, helping us get to a much more, a much improved version 2 for Radiance, just a better user experience in general. Obviously not without its flaws. Not saying it's perfect. There's still opportunity for improvement here, but I think we hopefully can all agree that what we have now is better than what we had. So that's a net positive change. So just a quick recap for folks that might be listening that might not be aware of the changes that have been made. The way Radiance progression has been updated, or the way that it's changed, is basically it's no longer RNG. We have an experience bar that you fill up, so all of your contributions matter, and there is no longer a feeling of, I put in this resource or I put in this value and I didn't get anything out of it. So there's that aspect. We also slightly tuned Enlightenment as well for the progression to try and make that a little bit easier to understand for players and make it easier to explain, which I think is a big one. The system itself is extremely complex, so trying to move in a direction that is more accessible and easy to explain to new players, I think is a benefit for everybody. So we also removed full heart minting. So basically the full hearts that you see that players have minted so far are going to be the extent of that from the player perspective. And I keep mentioning that just because there are mint caps on those, and we would like to potentially use them in the future for, promotions or rewards or something. Absolutely no plans at the moment, and we won't surpass the mint caps that have been previously communicated, but just keeping that in our back pocket. Yeah, and like I mentioned, still opportunities for improvement. Brahma mentioned the ideation stage of Gen 2 Core 2, and we're definitely keeping an eye on how folks are feeling about the new version of the system, that sort of thing, and if there's any potential improvements that we can make next time around. So let's see. The good times. So the 1510 situation. Basically, for those of you that are unfamiliar, we had a situation where I believe it was probably only one, if not no more than 4 players who unfortunately encountered a bug that allowed them to craft 1510s at a much cheaper cost than was intended. This was a bug, yes, unfortunately. The bug is, it's been discovered. We're testing the fix for it, which is why Enlightenment Radiance is disabled at the moment. And once we're confident that the situation is as it should be and the valuation of a 1510 is no longer at risk with the system when it's live, we will turn that back on for you guys. Let's see, do I want to say anything more about this one? Let me read chat to make sure. Okay, yes, I guess I will address that. So I see folks mentioning that they want the assets banned that were created through this bug. I understand the sentiment, I truly do. The problem with this is, and we've brought this up previously when this sort of thing has been discussed, is it sets a very poor precedent. One that once you take out of the bag, you can't really put back in, that I personally don't want to do, and I don't think anybody else on the team also wants to do. So yes, that means that it leaves an opportunity for when bugs happen, people to take advantage of that. That's true. However, we really, the negative of taking action and banning specific assets when we can't guarantee that they're in the hands of people that knew that they're ill-gotten goods, it would just, you wouldn't ever want to inadvertently buy something thinking that you got a good deal. Maybe you're new, maybe you don't pay that much attention, you just happen to be at the right place at the right time, and then you wake up and it's a banned asset now, and that's all you got. So it's not great. There's no easy way to solve for this. It's just that's just the unfortunate situation. So I don't foresee us taking any action against the assets themselves. We're still evaluating the situation as a whole and understanding exactly what happened, to what extent, and are going to decide the best course of action as far as repercussions to any accounts that participated in this heavily or not. the 5-3 situation. So folks that are unaware of what this is, basically Enlightenment and Radiance are no longer tied together. So you can create a Enlightenment 5 Radiance 10 Guardian if you so choose. This was part of the goals that Howie had set out for this system update, just to basically give you guys the freedom to do and progress however you would like. Is it weird? Yes, it's a little odd. Obviously, the system hasn't worked this way, so it takes a little getting used to. There's been a couple of things that might need to be accounted for specifically in Arena and from a transparency perspective, so players know what they're getting into during combat that I think are valid. I don't know if otherwise it really is that big of a deal, besides being weird. There's no issues. The cost scales as you increase Radiance, right? So it's not that you're paying the 5-0 level 0 Radiance cost every time. It scales based off of the Radiance level. So there isn't any um, progression problems or cost deviations here. You're still paying exactly what you need to, and the optimal path still is to increase Enlightenment and Radiance at once. Unfortunately, we were not able to decouple that as best as uh, as much as we would hoped. So you're really not doing yourself any favors by creating those 1510s. Besides it being kind of funny. Uh, so that's kind of the situation. Once I pass it back off to the next speaker, I'll catch up on chat and keep that in mind and answer some questions. But that's the gist of it. I hope I've covered most of this as thoroughly as folks were hoping for. Probably not, but I'll try and follow up here in a bit. Next slide, please. All right, live operations. I believe I am passing it back to Brahma, so take it away.
Yep. Can we move on to the next slide? Yeah. So nothing to speak about here. This is our plan for the next few months. We're just gonna leave it on screen. I know screenshots are being posted in the chat. Take a look, and maybe in a few seconds we'll move on to the next section, which is the AMA. I think the screenshots are in the chat, so yep, we can move on to the AMA, which would be the next slide. Believe we are looking at question 1, and the questions are: when will non-meta guardians get buffed? How will complexity of the PvE game modes be improved? Any plans to rebalance combat so that meta changes? Um, so hopefully the section about new mechanics will have answered that. We will use a collection of seasonally changing combat mechanics that highlight and focus different guardians and compositions and matchups time to time. This creates a more sustainable way for us to change things and keep changing them. This doesn't mean guardians won't also receive adjustment. As I mentioned, we will be introducing these through special events, but once our testing is at an adequate level of quality, we will look at a plan to roll them into our primary game modes, including the PvE game modes. So hopefully that answers the question. Apoc, if you have anything to add to this, otherwise we can move on to the next question.
Oh, I think we're good. I think you covered the Gen 2 aspects previously, so we should be okay.
I'm not sure who's
Sorry.
answering this.
Sorry, I was just getting my mic to load. Apologies. So the question is, what are the plans for growing the player base? Why aren't there more Web3 style community events to help encourage growth? I'll start with the first one. We are having a UA strategy for growing the player base. We have a very, very focused UA strategy that will be implemented to bring in long-term players. The team plans to start with small targeted campaigns that will use our enhanced creative framework to bring in these long-term players. And the approach here would be to prioritize quality over quantity so that we can really ensure that new players are more likely to engage deeply with the game. At the same time, while that is a focus on the paid user acquisition part, we also want to be able to increase our systems in game to allow for these players to come in and actually reach day 14, day 30 worth of gameplay and go even beyond. There are a couple of things that we'll be doing, which is the difficulty rebalance, the pacing rebalance in the game, economy rebalance for early game players so that they can catch up. Lots of quality of life improvements. We also have a new refer a friend system that will be coming in very, very soon in the game to really introduce a almost viral loop, right? That will allow you to bring in your friends and earn rewards, right? So there's lots of things that we are doing on the organic side of user acquisition as well as the paid side. And I hope that answers the question. For question number 2, why aren't there more Web3 style community events to help encourage growth? So the team does acknowledge the importance of Web3 style community events. I think the immediate efforts have been focused more on gameplay refinement, but there are plans in place to expand Web3 style events in the future and actually within the cycle. So we would first want to focus on the foundational improvements in our event system to ensure that we can modularize event design for replayability. After we do that, we would then offer fresh challenges in these recurring events where there would also be the opportunity for community-based challenges. So yeah, these seasonal events will incorporate dynamic mechanics and there will be community-driven goals to encourage participation in these events at some point. Cool. Over to the next one.
Who owns this question?
This was me as well. Apologies. Um, so the question is, are there any plans to improve GOG utility? So the short answer to the question is that yes, we are actually focusing on a strategy here to enhance our GOG token utility within both in-game as well as the broader Web3 ecosystem. We're not at a place where we can disclose all details at this time, but we are actively working on a new strategy here that really aligns with our goals of improving player engagement and strengthening the game economy. So please do stay tuned. But given that we are in early stages of this as well, we are also very much open to suggestions from the community on extended GOG utility, both in-game as well as generally within the Web3 ecosystem. So I will be keeping an eye on the feedback tab within Discord over the next few weeks if y'all have any specific ideas to share with us.
Next slide.
You move on to the next one.
All right, this one is me. It's a very fun one. You guys have been extremely patient as I have provided the same answer for a couple of months now at the very least. So this is something that we're looking to improve across the board. And while I say that, I also mean that we're actively doing stuff on this now. So leaderboard automation is my main priority at the moment. As I mentioned earlier in chat yesterday, for those of you that happen to catch that, about 30% done on the automation side. Unfortunately, with the way that our live operations are going to be changing moving forward, I need to do some pretty hefty re-architecture of the existing systems. So doing a little bit of rebuilding from scratch. But the overall experience will be significantly hands-off as a result. Currently, and basically the biggest blocker is with the unpredictability of our live operations up until this point, and the variety that we've done. through testing and experimentation, it made it extremely difficult to ensure that the data was in a consistent format, which meant that there was a lot of manual adjustment and updates and maintenance to do. So it basically became a bit too much to manage, and I know that some people will probably disagree, but there was just more important things to focus on. Um, but it's not forgotten. It's not something that we think is unimportant. We definitely want to get this fixed up. I would love for both the communication aspect, so you guys know exactly what you need to expect going into a season, and then also have that information available so that you guys can make sure that you guys are getting what you are supposed to, and you know your ranks, and you know your token rewards and all that fun stuff. So this is definitely important, and when I say it's actively being worked on, it is. I was working on it yesterday. I'll be working on it after this chat. So yeah, so we're handling this one as best we can. Good to go on next slide. Okay, this is an empty one. I don't know if we have anything after this or not, but I think this is the opportunity. Yeah, perfect for Q&A. So if you guys have stuff that you asked in the thread that we haven't covered, or if you've asked in the chat, tag either Zonic or myself or somebody on that question, and we'll take some time to answer as many of these as we can.
I saw that somebody tagged King Jack a little earlier to ask his questions. So I don't know if that's one that was some consensus on. Those were some good questions. We only have a few minutes left, so maybe pick and choose your favorite one or two.
I'm also scrolling around in chat here trying to see if I can extract anything. I see Teo had mentioned Chroma utility. I'll just touch on this briefly since I see it's kind of a bit of an extended chat. This is actually a system that we're looking to build out further. Obviously, with some of the other things that we've discussed, it might not sit quite as high up in the priorities. I think most folks can agree that, were we deciding between a game mode and a more final cosmetic system, you guys would probably prefer the game mode. So that's just some of the decision typing that we have to worry about here. So it's on the radar. We're definitely looking to do it. We understand that you guys are excited about it and have really appreciated the improvements to the existing cosmetics that we've released so far. So yeah, it's gonna keep on moving that forward as well. Let's see, what else do we have? Boop, boop, boop. Network move. I don't think that's feasible. I don't think moving to Ronin is a doable thing. I'm not very hands into the technicals. I would imagine that would take an immense amount of resourcing and time.
That would be a fairly titanic integration.
Yeah, sounds about right.
I mean, it's certainly like anything's possible, but oof.
Yeah, makes sense. Support team expansion. So we actually just recently added a new support agent, Chloe. I'm not quite sure if she has been as active, but she should be monitoring the report bugs and help desk. If you have any issues, tagging her should get them through, and hopefully she can help out with some things there. Obviously myself as well, looking to try and get some of the outstanding issues resolved. I know some folks have some tickets still, so working on getting those done as well. Let's see.
Apologies, I've got a hard stop, so I have to bounce out. But
Yep.
thank you, everybody.
Thank you,
See you.
Clay.
Yep, thank you, Clay.
Okay, we're talking about Hannah's butt. What else?
Censored.
Yes.
Censored Hannah's butt.
Okay. I guess I won't hold the team hostage any further with my reading out loud. Is there anything else that we're missing, or I'll still be around for a little bit after, unless there's any more pressing questions that we haven't gotten to that folks want answers to, that we can't answer. You got maybe like another minute or two to type those out or link them. And other than that, we might just call it here.
Cool. Thank you so much, everyone. As always, it's lovely to speak with you guys, and I'll see you guys at the next one. Goodbye.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody. We have this recorded. We'll get it loaded up on YouTube as soon as I get the file, and we'll make an announcement to share that out to everybody. Thank you guys for the time, for the good questions. If you have any more questions you want us to answer, feel free to just drop them in general chat, tag me or APOC, and we'll do our best to get you an answer if we're able to. Thanks, y'all.
Cool. Thanks, folks.